Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the Bryce Hopkins and Terrence Shannon stuff. And not specifically, like, oh, Bryce Hopkins tore his ACL. Obviously, that's terrible. And we're thinking about him. I want to kind of hear you guys from the coaching perspective. Like, how do you handle that? Right. If you have a guy that is such a big piece of what you do, like Terrence Shannon, for example, right? First team All American, averaging 22 points, such a big part of what they do in transition, defensively, offensively. And now he's gone. How do you rebuild? How do you revamp? How do you change what you do? Mac, you mentioned earlier that you had Edmund Sumner tear his ACL in the middle of the season before. Like, how do you go about attacking that as a coach?
Well, I think every situation, every injury is a little bit different, Rob, in the sense that, Edmund was our point guard. I know Terrence tends to play with the ball a lot. Bryce Hopkins, not necessarily, but he was their sort of go to guy. And, I think that, for a team like Providence, it's a tough challenge. They're going to have to be able to pick up Bryce's rebounding. I think you never necessarily like just replace the guy and plug someone else in and hope it becomes what it was before. I think you hear the term you got to do it by committee, but I still think you have to be who you're going to be. Now for us back in the day, when I remember Edmund went down, he was our point guard and he was a dynamic one. He was a guy that could score 15, 20 points on any given night and really electrified our team by getting out in transition and finding guys like Blewett and McCura and got them open looks. And then all of a sudden we go to a guy like Quentin Gooden, who's a freshman at the time. And he was barely playing 10 minutes a game prior to that. He went from playing 10 minutes a game to about 38, 39 minutes a game. And we struggled for a bit. We almost didn't make the tournament. And then we end up going to the Elite Eight. And Quentin was a guy that, sort of became that quarterback that just sort of, managed the game and sort of put the ball in other people's hands. He wasn't trying to play like Edmund. And I think for him, being a freshman, that was a huge deal for him to be able to just sort of run the team, not necessarily try to go above and beyond and try to get Edmund's numbers or play like him. And consequently, he got Trayvon and JP better shots. Now, having said that, they got a lot of set plays that they're going to Bryce Hopkins. So they're going to have to play through some different guys. They're going to have to pick up the slack with his rebounding. I thought the way Illinois played the other night without Terrence was impressive. I guess my only thing is, can they continue that? As again, very few teams can lose somebody that's averaging 22 points a game, a first-team All-American, and not miss a beat over the long term. So I'll be really interested to see, especially tomorrow when they play Purdue, how Illinois looks when, again, time passes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think dealing with an injury is kind of separate to what Illinois is
Right.
dealing with, right? I mean, they're trying to figure out, is he coming back? I mean, that's a whole separate, category. My first year at Chattanooga, we had a guy named Casey Jones, and when I got the job, you could tell he was the alpha male, and he was the guy. And our first game, my first game as a head coach, we went on the road and beat Georgia 92-90 in overtime. 2 games later, we beat Illinois on the road, and Casey Jones was leading us in points, rebounds, and assists. He was leading us basically in every single category. And the day before, we're supposed to go on the road and play Dayton in a warm-up drill, basically just a closeout drill. Someone that ball faked in a closeout drill, Casey left his feet and dislocated his ankle. And it was one of the most gruesome injuries that I've ever seen live. And he was done for the year. And we actually went on the road the next day and beat Dayton. And I don't think if we win that game, I think we still have a pretty good year because we had a lot of really good players. But that game and his injury kind of rallied our group together. And there were other guys that stepped up as soon as he went down. And as a young head coach, because of how good he was, I would get caught up in just trying to run almost every single action at him and every single underneath out of bounds play and every set or dead ball or timeout or whatever it was, because he was that good. And when he went down, it seemed like the ball flowed and moved more, and other guys, like Coach Mack says, kind of stepped up, and we were able to have a lot of success, and they loved him. I'll never forget that win against Dayton. All those players wanted to do was call Casey Jones, who was in the hospital dealing with his injury, and they kind of rallied around that, and we went on a run and went to the NCAA tournament. And every injury is different. Like Coach said, Casey was this hybrid. We played him at the 3, we played him at the 4. Your point guard gets taken out. That's a different scenario you got to deal with. But Kim English is a young head coach, and trying to manage this situation too is a challenge. And for me, I had veteran players and was fortunate to have veteran players, and guys really stepped up. Trey McClain, Chuck Esther became kind of our glue guy there, and Chuck the next year ended up having a season-ending injury as our glue guy. It's a tough thing to try to manage, especially as a young head coach. But having a veteran team really helps.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about Kim dealing with this is that his senior year in college was the year that Missouri went like 30-4 and won the Big 12 tournament and was a 2 seed. And before the season started, I think like days before the season started, Lawrence Bowers, who was their all, I believe like their all conference 4-man, tore his ACL. So Kim, I always make fun of him for this, ended up playing power forward that entire season for Missouri. So it's a matter of guys, I think, have to sacrifice and step into different roles. I think the thing that makes me so interested in what Illinois is going to be is exactly what you just said about how the ball moves a little bit more. Like Terrence Shannon is an All-American point guard, has been unbelievable in transition, has been shooting the ball a lot better this year. But it feels like when you watch Illinois the last 2 games, like it's kind of pinging around a little bit more, right? And obviously you don't want to lose an All-American, but I think that not knowing maybe what to expect for other coaches, how much does that help too, Mac? Like some of these other guys don't know what you are going to do or what change you're going to make.
I don't know. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
No, I don't know if Rob's saying Mac or Matt sometimes. So we
Yeah.
got to, I don't know. Maybe it's the audio down here in Long Island, New York. I don't know. Is it Mac or Matt? Which one was it?
I'm going to start saying Chris. I'm going to say Chris from now on. So instead of Mac and McCall, it's going to be Chris and Matt.
Okay, all right. Just say Mac. Go ahead, Coach Mac.
I don't even know what the hell the question was at this point.
No, I'll chime in though, because I dealt with it because, like I said, Casey Jones was leading us in every single statistical category, and we were winning games. We were winning games you don't, at Chattanooga to beat 2 Power 5 schools in your first 4 games is that's big time. And Casey went down, and a lot of stuff that we were running offensively was through him, and the ball was in his hands. We'd play him at the power forward spot and reverse it through him and let him initiate offense or call set plays to get him the ball in a lot of different spots on the floor, underneath out of bounds, whatever it was. And when he went down, it's like, okay, now, man, all right, let's more ball movement, more player movement, more passes per possession. And our offense really evolved. And you never want to lose a player like that. You never want to lose a player of his caliber at all. But to your point, Rob, with Terrence Shannon being out, the ball's hopping around a little bit more. And, Brad Underwood, isn't having to figure out, man, we got to get him the ball in this spot because he's so good here. So let's run this action that, every team is scouting. And now they're going to double him, whatever it may be. It can hop around and teams aren't prepared for it, right? I mean, I'll never forget this. We lose Casey, and Tom Ostrom is a dear friend of mine. He's an assistant coach at Dayton, and he calls me and says, "Is this for real?" I'm like, "Tom, we just lost our leading scorer, and you're calling me right now to ask me if he's not playing. He's not playing in the game tomorrow. But they're scouting for Casey Jones to play. And now he's not on the floor, and a lot of their game plan is to go at him. How are we going to defend him? Now you got to guard, more movement, more player movement, more ball movement.
You should have told him it was the wrong player. You should have told him it was somebody else that actually hurt his knee or hurt his ankle instead of Casey. Thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.